Good evening. Welcome to QUT Web News. Qantas Chief Executive Officer Joyce has been grilled at a Senate inquiry in Sydney over the grounding of the entire Qantas fleet last Saturday. And in further bad news for the airline, engine trouble has forced a Qantas A380 flight en route from Singapore to London to land in Dubai.
Mr Joyce maintained the decision to ground the entire Qantas fleet was his alone, and that he had been reacting to the threat of a 40-hour walkout by workers.
I brought it to a head, Senator, and I do apologise to all of those 90,000 customers that were impacted by it. But we had to bring it to a head because we were going to have so many more, hundreds of thousands of customers impacted over the next year, and Qantas would never got them back.
The inquiry heard that Senator Nick Xenophon's proposed amendments to the Qantas Sale Act would cripple the airline, restricting its growth into the booming Asian market.
This would put an additional burden just on the Australian carriers, wouldn't put an additional burden on anyone else, and seriously tip the competitive landscape against Australian carriers and therefore destroy Australian jobs.
But the competitiveness of the changing global market was not something Transport Workers Union Secretary Tony Sheldon was interested in discussing. Instead, Mr Sheldon outlined the difficulties unions have had regarding pay negotiations with Qantas.
The board's made a number of considered decisions that would antagonise their own employees and many people across the community.
Qantas now faces the task of recouping the massive losses those rolling strikes have caused and finding a way of recovering the airline's hemorrhaging international sector. The proposed amendments to the Qantas Sale Act may restrict the airline from doing just that. Jessica Sire, QUT News.
Indonesian police have arrested crew members of an asylum seeker boat which sank off the coast of West Java on Tuesday. Of the 60 people on board, 8 died and another 4 remain missing.
Each crew member could face 5 years in jail for breaching immigration and maritime laws, according to the local police commander. A survivor of the tragedy has told the ABC passengers had begged the captain to take them back to shore before the ship sank. He paid $9,000 to the people smugglers, hoping to secure his family's safety in Australia. Those passengers who survived are now in the hands of Indonesian immigration authorities, who consider them illegal immigrants. The tragedy has reignited debate in Australian Parliament over the need to find a solution for refugee processing in Australia. Amy Partington, QUT News.
An accident involving 5 cars and a petrol tanker closed all but 2 lanes of the Sydney Harbour Bridge today. 3 people suffering serious injuries were airlifted to local hospitals. The crash, which occurred around lunchtime, caused long delays, with traffic backed up for kilometres. Emergency crews worked throughout the afternoon to clear the wreckage before the evening peak hour.
Day 17 of the Occupy Brisbane protest, and numbers are starting to dwindle. After 2 evictions, 11 arrests and up to $30,000 in damage, Brisbane City Council is finally cracking down.
Several Occupy Brisbane protesters say they were fined by Brisbane City Council workers this morning after spending last night at Emma Miller Place on Rome Street. Protesters moved there last night after police evicted them from Queen's Park in the CBD yesterday. Spokesperson Andy Payne says around 7 this morning they were fined $4,000 for sleeping in public parks and $500 for playing the bagpipes. He says this is exactly what they're protesting against.
An example of the way the state uses its kind of power to just shut down people.
He says they'll try to appeal the fines.
We're going to talk to people about our legal options for paying the fines and whether we can appeal it.
These fines follow a clash with police on Wednesday morning, resulting in the arrest of 11 people after protesters refused to be evicted from Post Office Square. Brisbane City Council estimates it will cost ratepayers $20,000 to $30,000 to repair turf damaged by the protesters. Mr Payne defends claims the group has lost momentum after organisers announced on Facebook they're stepping down following Wednesday's incident with police.
Occupy Brisbane as a group, we're still united and we'll still be organising to continue this movement.
This morning, organisers posted a draft appeal to the Premier Anna Bligh on their Facebook page, prompting group discussion over future plans for Occupy Brisbane. In their submission, organisers beg for the Premier's compassion to allow them to continue the movement in Roma Street Parklands. They're asking Ms Bligh to support their plight,
saying the movement isn't just a fad, but the first step to a long-awaited, long-prayed-for change.
The protest is expected to come to a head tomorrow at midday in King George Square, when another rally is scheduled. Claudia Kirkman, QUT News.
Recent record profits by Australian banks have triggered another wave of consumer anger. But a leading financial analyst from QUT says healthy bank results are proof our economy is in great shape.
Australia's big four banks have just announced their biggest yearly profits. But not everyone is happy with the news. A government survey has found 1/3 of consumers are dissatisfied with their bank or other financial institution. Poor customer service, hidden fees and charges, and delays or non-delivery of services are the major concerns. But a leading bank analyst says we need to put the latest profits in context.
Say that you were looking at buying an investment property, a house, and that was going to cost you $750,000. The profit that would be equivalent to the NAB profit would be you making $5,500 profit on your $750,000 investment property.
He also says the health of the banking sector affects the whole country.
Banks are the canary in the coal mine of the whole economy.
And with the euro debt crisis deepening, he says Australian banks are in a strong position globally.
And it's interesting to note that the Australian banking system is held up as one of the few in the world that has been well managed, well regulated by the regulators and run prudentially by their management.
But a recent report by the Australia Institute's David Richardson says that with 90% of the lending market in Australia, banks are immune from competition, and that's not healthy for customers. Michelle Harris, QUT News.
Smart technology robots are taking to the air. QUT researchers are combining sensor technology with helicopter design to create pint-sized surveillance robots.
You wouldn't think it, but this tiny robot is smart and tough. It can fly up to 400 feet and with high-tech sensors can see the world around it. Its developers believe one day it'll save lives, doing risky jobs too dangerous for humans.
So you think you want to look at the top of a power pole or a light pole. It's hard to get up there. You need to get a cherry picker. You want to look at the outside of a window on the 5th floor. You've got to send someone down on a rope. So the idea of this robot is it can just fly up with the camera and take a picture.
Equipped with multiple cameras, the robot sees, registers and transmits back a live video stream, which is then displayed on a portable laptop. It's also equipped with sensor technology capable of sensing walls and calibrating wind speed, all so it can readjust its flight path, virtually piloting itself.
The idea is we want to create a system that anybody could fly. My mother should be able to fly this thing, just by telling it to go up or down, left or right.
The QUT robotics team has great hopes for the device, investing countless hours and thousands of dollars towards the project. But it'll be some time before you can go and buy one in the shops. There are still some technical challenges to work through. Researchers are using cost-effective technology so the flying surveillance robots would be affordable, but they're not stopping there. Upgrades are already in the works. In the next year, the robots might get arms. Candice Anderson, QUT News.
The 3 Pakistani cricketers at the centre of a match-fixing scandal have been jailed in Britain. Former Pakistan Test captain Salman Butt has been given 30 months for his role and has confirmed he will appeal his sentence. Bowler Mohammad Asif was sentenced to 1 year and 19-year-old Mohammad Amir 6 months. Cricket agent Mazhar Majid was handed the most severe penalty, being sentenced to 2 years and 8 months. The judge said as a result of their actions, followers of the game will now always be sceptical when surprising events or results occur.
And in other sports news, the Thorpedo is back in the water. Ian Thorpe has made his long-awaited comeback at the FINA World Cup in Singapore.
It's official, Thorpe is back. The Aussie champ came second in his heat of the 100-metre individual medley at a World Cup meet in Singapore today, securing him a place in the final later tonight.
It's nice to get the first swim out of the way.
It was the first race for the 5-time Olympic gold medalist since his retirement in 2006. The swim star hopes it'll bring him one step closer to qualifying for the Olympics next year. In the Four Nations contest, the Kangaroos are the favourites ahead of their clash with England at Wembley tomorrow. But the Roos say reigning champs New Zealand are the ones to beat.
In my eyes, New Zealand are the #1 nation in rugby league, so certainly, look, we'd in my eyes, I want to get that mantle back for our nation.
The Brisbane Roar will go head-to-head against the Melbourne Victory tomorrow. The Roar has a record 32 wins under its belt and is hoping for another. And Flemington is expected to draw up to 100,000 punters trackside tomorrow. Superstar mare Black Caviar is the favourite to take out the Group 1 Patinack Farm Classic. Cox Plate runner-up Jimmy Choo is expected to win the Emirates Stakes in what will be the last Group 1 race of the Melbourne Cup. Rebecca Fay, QUT News.
Time now for a look at the weather. And in the southeast, Brisbane reached a top of 26 degrees. Logan and Ipswich also had a maximum of 26, while the Gold Coast had a sunny day and 24. From our Skycam, we can see those clouds over the state capital. Blue skies managed to shine through around mid-morning, but gave way to a cloudy afternoon. Around the nation tomorrow, Perth can expect showers. Darwin will get a late thunderstorm after a hot day with a top of 33. The southern capitals will be mostly fine. Hobart will reach a top of 19. The forecast for Queensland tomorrow, and Cairns and Rockhampton may see some rain. Mount Isa might get a thunderstorm after a hot 32. And Brisbane will be mostly fine with a top of 26. And that brings you up to date with the weather.
And that is QUT News for 2011.
Thank you for joining us this year, and we'll be back in 2012. Until then, goodbye.
Goodbye.